April 18, 1941. Augsburg, Bavaria. A cold wind sweeps through the Messerschmitt factory courtyard, carrying the scent of oil and burnt metal. Inside Hangar 9, beneath a shroud of secrecy, a group of engineers huddle around a skeletal airframe, its swept wings like the bones of some mechanical bird yet to take flight. At the center stands Dr. Hans von Ohein, his fingers blackened with grease, his eyes bright with exhaustion and belief. Across from him, Willy Messerschmitt, the charismatic and volatile head of Messerschmitt AG, leans over the prototype's nose, studying its twin nacelles. "This," Ohein says, running a hand along the smooth aluminum skin, "isn't a piston engine. It's the future." The machine before them is the Messerschmitt Project 1065, soon to be designated the Me 262. Beneath its unfinished wings lie two Junkers Jumo 004 turbojets, primitive but revolutionary. While the rest of the Luftwaffe still battles the skies with Bf-109s and Fj-190s, this aircraft promises something unthinkable: flight powered by jet propulsion. But as the engineers whisper about thrust and turbine blades, distant air raid sirens echo over Augsburg. Britain's bombers are coming. The Third Reich is being battered from above, yet here, hidden beneath tarps and armed guards, a new kind of warfare is being born. When the first test engine ignites, the hangar trembles. The scream of the Jumo 004 is unlike anything the engineers have ever heard, a banshee's wail that rattles their chests. Smoke fills the air, instruments flicker. Then, as the engine stabilizes, the noise evens into a steady, ghostly hum. Messerschmitt allows himself a rare smile. "Gentlemen," he says, "we are no longer bound by the propeller." Outside, few know what's happening behind those locked doors. Even within the Luftwaffe, the project is whispered about only in code. To the Allies, the very idea of a jet-powered fighter is science fiction. But inside that dim hangar, under flickering lights and the smell of kerosene, Germany is building something that, if unleashed in time, could change the entire course of the war. July 18, 1942. Leipheim Airfield, southern Germany. The dawn fog clings to the grass as a small group gathers around a sleek silver aircraft. The first fully operational Messerschmitt Me 262 V3 prototype. The moment is quiet, almost reverent. Mechanics move in silence, fastening panels, checking gauges, and wiping the frost from its sharp, swept wings. At its controls sits test pilot Fritz Wendel, a man known for equal parts nerve and precision. He tightens his harness, glances at the twin Jumo 004A engines beside him, and mutters under his breath, "Let's see if the future can fly." The runway stretches ahead, shimmering under the rising sun. The ground crew steps back, and the order comes through the headset. "Engines start." A cough, a sputter, then a howl. The turbines whine higher and higher, until the sound becomes a piercing shriek that makes even the nearby Luftwaffe officers flinch. The Me 262 begins to roll, slowly at first, then with a sudden, almost violent acceleration. There's no piston rumble, no propeller wash, only that eerie, steady thrust. Wendell pulls back on the stick, and just like that, the world changes. The Me 262 lifts gracefully into the Bavarian sky, smooth, clean, impossibly fast. Observers gape as the silver shape streaks past at over 500 miles per hour, faster than anything they've ever seen. It's not just a new aircraft, it's a new species of flight. But the triumph is short-lived. Midway through the second pass, the right engine flames out. The early turbojets are temperamental. Prone to overheating and failure, Wendell fights the stick, glides the powerless aircraft back to the runway, and lands in a cloud of dust. Silence follows, then scattered cheers. He climbs out of the cockpit, drenched in sweat, and looks to Messerschmitt. "She flies," he says simply, "but she's hungry for perfection." Messerschmitt nods. Behind him, Luftwaffe General Adolf Galland, one of Germany's top aces, watches in awe. Galland is a veteran of the Battle of Britain. He knows the sky as a duelist's arena. And in this machine, he sees an unbeatable weapon. Later that day, Galland sends a telegram to Berlin. "The Me-262 is a leap ahead of anything we or the enemy possess. Mass production must begin immediately." But in Berlin, where war strategy is dictated more by politics than practicality, that message will fall on dangerous ears. For in the Reich Chancellery, one man, Adolf Hitler, believes he alone knows what kind of war Germany must fight. And he does not see the Me-262 as a fighter. He sees it as a bomber.
We're taking heavy fire. Repeat, heavy fire.
September 1943. Rastenburg, East Prussia, the wolf's lair. The air smells of pine and damp concrete. Inside a heavily guarded bunker, the top brass of the Luftwaffe gather around a long oak table. Charts of Allied bombing routes cover the walls, red lines cutting deep into German territory. At the head of the table sits Adolf Hitler, eyes narrow, mustache twitching with irritation as General Adolf Galland lays out a plan for mass-producing the Me-262 as a defensive fighter. Galland's voice is calm, measured, but beneath it, urgency. "My Führer," Galland says, "with this aircraft, we can meet the American bombers before they reach our cities. Nothing they have can match its speed." Hitler leans back, eyes flashing. "Speed is not what I need, Galland. What I need is retribution." He jabs a finger toward the map, toward London. "The Me-262 will carry bombs, 1,000 kilos. It will strike the enemy's cities, not chase them." The room falls silent. The engineers shift uncomfortably. The Me-262's slim design isn't suited for bomb loads. It was built to hunt, not haul. But no one dares contradict the Führer outright. Messerschmitt himself, standing stiffly beside Galland, finally speaks. "My Führer, if I may, fitting bombs will require modifications to the airframe and balance. It will delay production." Hitler glares at him. "Delay? You speak of delay while the Americans destroy our factories? No, Herr Messerschmitt, this machine will be the Blitz bomber." The decision is made. The world's first jet fighter is to become a jet bomber, a role it was never meant to play. Back in Augsburg, morale collapses. Engineers shake their heads in disbelief as new blueprints arrive from Berlin. Orders to install bomb racks beneath the wings, to reconfigure fuel lines, to alter center of gravity calculations that had taken months to perfect. Every change introduces new flaws, new risks. Test pilots complain the modified aircraft handles like a stone when loaded. Galland fumes. In his private notes, he calls Hitler's order a crime against aviation. But there's nothing he can do. Meanwhile, Allied bombers grow bolder. By late 1943, American B-17 Flying Fortresses and B-24 Liberators pound German cities daily. Fuel depots burn, factories crumble. The skies over Europe are thick with contrails, and still the Me-262 waits in hangars, unfinished. Then, as if to mock the engineer's suffering, the RAF bombs Augsburg itself. Flames sweep across the Messerschmitt complex, destroying prototypes and tooling. What had been the Reich's most advanced secret is now buried under twisted steel and smoke. When Messerschmitt finally walks through the rubble the next morning, he finds one airframe, charred, dented, but intact. He places his hand on the scorched fuselage and murmurs, "You'll fly again." Somewhere far away, Allied intelligence intercepts whispers of a miracle plane. But no one believes them. A jet fighter? Faster than a Mustang? It sounds impossible. And for now, thanks to Hitler's interference, it is. April 1944. Lechfeld Air Base, Bavaria. The hangars hum with renewed purpose. After months of political wrangling and bombing delays, the Me 262 finally stands ready. Reborn, refined, and faster than ever. Its sleek fuselage glints in the spring sunlight. Twin Jumo 004B engines mounted like metallic muscles beneath its wings. But beneath the beauty lies fragility. The engines, though powerful, have lifespans measured in hours, not days. One burst of throttle too strong, and the turbines can melt or tear themselves apart. The alloys Germany once relied on for heat resistance, nickel, chromium, are now rationed to near extinction. The Luftwaffe must make do with inferior metals that warp under stress. Still, against all odds, they fly. Test pilot Heinrich Beauvais records in his log, "Acceleration unbelievable. Controls stable beyond 800 km/h. The world below moves like film run too fast. Feels like flying the future, if the future doesn't explode." In a nearby hangar, Adolf Galland arrives for a demonstration. Once Hitler's favored ace, Galland has become a cautious rebel within his own air force. He knows the war is turning. Allied bombers rule the skies. P-51 Mustangs escort them all the way to Berlin. Germany's traditional fighters are being shredded. Then, the Me 262 takes off. In seconds, it's gone. A streak of silver that disappears into the clouds. Galland stares upward, eyes wide. When the jet returns and lands, Galland turns to the officers around him and declares, "Gentlemen, I have just seen the war's salvation, if only we can use it." But the struggle isn't over. The Reich's factories are shattered, its fuel reserves drained, its pilots exhausted. Even the airfields are under constant threat. Every day, American P-51s and P-47s sweep low, strafing the runways where Me 262s are being assembled. And each time one of the precious jets is destroyed before it can even take off, Messerschmitt's heart sinks further. In Berlin, Hitler continues to insist on his Blitzbomber variant. Engineers secretly defy the order, modifying aircraft for interceptor roles without approval. Galland backs them in secret, risking court-martial. He knows time is running out. By summer 1944, the Me 262 finally begins entering combat, in tiny numbers. The first operational unit, Airprobungskommando 262, launches test missions against Allied bombers over Munich. Reports flood in. B-17 formations scattered in panic. P-51 escorts unable to keep up. One jet destroys 3 bombers before vanishing at impossible speed. Luftwaffe pilots, long used to hopeless odds, now speak with awe. "It's like flying a thunderbolt," one says. "They can't even see us coming." But as thrilling as the victories are, they come too late and too slow. Production is crippled by Allied bombing, and fuel shortages mean that pilots often train for combat with barely 30 minutes of flight time in the Me 262 before being thrown into battle. The miracle machine that could have ruled the skies in 1942 is now fighting a desperate, losing war in 1944. And somewhere in his darkened office, Willy Messerschmitt looks over the latest reports. and realizes his masterpiece may never fulfill its destiny. October 7th, 1944. Aachener Airfield, Lower Saxony. The morning mist lies heavy over the runways, glistening like frost. Beneath it, the last defenders of the Reich prepare their new weapon. The Messerschmitt Me 262A 1A Schwalbe, the Swallow. Ground crews work frantically, loading the jet's nose with 30mm Mk108 cannons, their shells heavy and crude but devastating at close range. Fuel trucks sputter. Aviation-grade fuel is scarce now, often mixed with impure additives that risk seizing the engines mid-flight. From the cockpit of White 3, Lieutenant Franz Schall, one of Germany's few surviving aces, tightens his gloves and scans the horizon. American bombers fill the western sky, a glinting wall of silver. They're escorted by P-51 Mustangs, the most feared Allied fighter in Europe. But today, Schall has something the enemy doesn't. He eases the throttle forward. The Jumo engines shriek to life. Smoke and dust billow across the airstrip. The jet rolls, then leaps skyward like a bullet leaving the barrel. At 30,000 feet, the Me-262s form up. 4 aircraft, gleaming like ghosts in the morning sun, they climb above the bomber streams, unseen and untouchable. Then, diving from above at nearly 540 miles per hour, they open fire. The B-17 formation erupts. 1, then 2 bombers spiral downward, wings aflame. The Mustangs give chase, but they can't close the gap. The jets vanish, climbing out of sight as quickly as they struck. From the ground, Allied pilots report the same phrase again and again. They came out of nowhere. For a few fleeting months, the Me-262 restores something the Luftwaffe has not felt in years: hope. A weapon that can truly challenge the Allies' air supremacy. Even Hitler, at last persuaded by Galland and the test reports, allows the jet to be used in interceptor roles. But it's too late. Germany's infrastructure is in ruins. Allied bombing has reduced factories to rubble, fuel to vapor, and supply lines to chaos. Every Me-262 that reaches the front is a small miracle, and every loss, a tragedy that can't be replaced. Maintenance crews cannibalize broken jets for spare parts. Engines overheat and fail mid-combat. Pilots die not from enemy fire, but from mechanical breakdowns on takeoff. And yet, in those final desperate months, the jet still inspires a fear. Allied crews whisper about silver arrows that strike and vanish. Intelligence reports call it the storm bird. Churchill demands answers. American engineers study gun camera footage in disbelief. What are these things? One analyst asks. They're jets, another replies quietly. Real jets. By early 1945, even as Berlin trembles under artillery fire, the Me-262 remains in the air, fragile, magnificent, and doomed. Galland, now commanding Jagdverband 44, handpicks his best pilots, men willing to fight to the last. They paint the undersides of their Me-262s bright red, mocking the enemy and fate alike. It's a fighter group born from defiance, not hope. Every mission they fly is an act of both brilliance and futility. The Me-262 is the fastest thing in the sky, but it cannot change the outcome on the ground. April 26, 1945. Munich-Riem Airfield, Bavaria. The thunder of artillery echoes from the east. The Red Army is closing in on Berlin. The Allies are streaming through southern Germany. The once mighty Luftwaffe now lies shattered, its airfields cratered, its fuel tanks empty, its pilots scattered. In a battered hangar at Rheims, a handful of Me-262s sit motionless. Their sleek lines are dulled by dust and grime, engines silent, tires flat. The men who built them, the dreamers, engineers, and test pilots, know the war is lost. But still, they work. Willy Messerschmitt, his face drawn and pale, stands beside one of the jets. Around him, his engineers pack blueprints into crates, hoping to hide them before the Allies arrive. The Me-262 project is no longer a weapon. It's a secret to be protected from both victors and vengeance. Outside Tani, Generalleutnant Adolf Galland lights a cigarette, the smoke curling through the dim Bavarian air. His squadron, Jagdverband 44, has only a handful of operational jets left. The red-bellied fighters that once streaked through the skies now sit idle, grounded by fuel shortages. Galland exhales slowly, watching a group of young pilots joke nervously beside a hangar. Most of them are barely 20. "If we'd had this machine 2 years earlier," he mutters, "the world would look very different." But history doesn't deal in ifs. Moments later, sirens wail. American Mustangs inbound. Mechanics scatter. The remaining Me-262s are rolled out onto the taxiway in desperation. Engines shriek to life, turbines whining like tortured metal. Galland himself takes one up, the last combat sortie of the jet's brief, brilliant career. He roars into the sky as tracers slice through the clouds. A dogfight unfolds. Jets against propellers, technology decades apart. The Me-262 streaks past its pursuers, outpacing them effortlessly. But it can't turn sharply, can't climb quickly with its fragile engines. A burst of 50 caliber rounds rakes the fuselage. Galland jerks the stick. The jet lurches, smoke trailing. He manages to limp back to Rheims, landing hard as flames lick at the tail. He survives. Barely. The jet, his last, does not. By the first week of May, Germany surrenders. Allied forces seize Messerschmitt's facilities, gathering every Me-262 they can find. American engineers swarm the airframes, running their hands along the contours, peering into the turbines, taking notes in stunned silence. One U.S. test pilot at Lechfeld reportedly whispers, This is 20 years ahead of us." They crate the aircraft up and ship them west. Soon, Me-262s are flying over American test ranges, their DNA becoming the blueprint for the F-86 Sabre and MiG-15, the dueling icons of the jet age to come. As for Messerschmitt, he is arrested, tried, and later resumes work in peacetime aviation. Von Ohain continues his jet research quietly, his ideas shaping future engines across the world. Galland survives the war, forever convinced that the Me-262 was both a miracle and a tragedy. Because in the end, the aircraft that could have ruled the skies arrived just 2 years too late. A machine that symbolized everything the Third Reich was capable of, and everything it destroyed through arrogance and obsession. The last operational Me-262s are dragged away by Allied troops, their once deafening engines now silent. The age of the jet has begun. But its first bird was born in the shadows, under the ruins of a war it could never win.